So just a few notes before we get started today. We're going to do a restorative class, and if you own a bolster, it's going to be really helpful to have. And if you have any kind of a chair, that'll also be a nice prop to have for head support in some of the poses. So feel free to grab those now if you have to. And then we're going to get going, just starting seated. It's the 23rd, so just take a moment to find the less favored crossing of your legs. Take a moment to adjust yourself so that you can really spread the flesh across the sitting bones. You can feel the legs kind of start to release in the roots of the thighs and the outer hips. Just take some time finding the center points of the sitting bones. And then as you feel ready, joining the hands in front of the heart, closing the eyes, looking away from the brain. Giving your attention to anything you notice. Observing the natural rhythm of your breath. Running a body scan and just kind of looking in on all the areas inside of you and noticing any sensation. Noticing what tension is in the body this morning. Tension in the face. Tension in the abdomen. Inside the mouth. And just kind of dropping into a more perceptive place, a slowed down place, a quieter place. Really just let this practice be about paying your attention. And gently bow toward your heart. Let your hands move away from the chest toward the thighs. And when you're ready, lift your head. Let your eyes come open. And welcome. So as I often talk about, this yoga monthly cycle that we do is very cumulative work to bring us to restorative. I call it yoga dessert. But I thought it would be fun to run through 6 actions of the spine in several sequences. So we're kind of embodying that monthly cycle. And of course, in restorative ways. So the first set, and I have 4 sequences. I'm not sure if we'll get to all of them, but the first set, we're going to use that bolster. So if you have a bolster, great. If you don't have a bolster, you can kind of improvise by either wrapping a blanket around a rolled up yoga mat, rolling 2 blankets together. You could also have more of a rectangular shape and put 2 blocks inside a blanket or 2 blankets. So you basically just want to kind of create as much of this sort of prop as you can. And we're going to move the 6 actions of the spine from the forward bend to the back bend. So that's the arc, just kind of mimicking what we do in the month. So we'll begin in child's pose using your bolster. We'll just call it a bolster for our purposes today. So the bolster can be support for the torso. It could just be support for the forehead. You might actually decide to use the bolster support between your butt and your feet. So how you use it is really up to you, but use it in some way that gives your child's pose a bit more propping than just doing it without props. Arms can be restful, so that means you might have arms just kind of outside the bolster, in front of you. You might widen your elbows. You also might be on your cheek rather than your forehead. It's important to be able to breathe. So if you are on your forehead, make sure it's right at the end of your bolster so that you're able to keep the nose free and clear. And hopefully you've left the striving at the door and you're able to really receive these poses once you set them up. You're able to let them work on you. Oftentimes the body, especially the connective tissue, is more responsive when we do away with the effort and the striving. Let the shape and the breath just kind of open the body on its own. We'll be here another minute, so if you're doing one cheek resting, just make sure to save some time to transition to the other cheek. We'll be coming into a twisting action with the bolster, so you can start to move away from the child's pose and align your left hip with the end of the bolster. And just have your legs kind of bent and off to the right. And then just start to turn the trunk toward the bolster and spread the length on the bolster. And if you feel like putting your cheek down is going to be too extreme, you could put something extra where the cheek will be so that you can kind of have that prop meet you rather than reaching for it. And attempt to put your right cheek down. And if that feels a little too much, you can always just have your left cheek down. And just notice how the suppleness of the spine isn't immediate. A lot of this work is kind of getting out of the way of ourselves, of those default kind of tensing against moments in the body. Hopefully you're in a quiet room this morning. Maybe you even have some soft music playing. So this first sequence is very gentle, very mild. We're going to start to transition to some lateral movement now. So you can just bring yourself away from the support just to turn it 90 degrees. So then it's horizontally running against your body. And we're going to come into the crescent shape of the spine, which is the lateral movement. So you can just kind of lie down on that support so that it's hitting your side ribs. So it's starting right at the armpit and running toward the hips, but really mainly entering kind of the side ribs so that we get the spine to push up like a rainbow shape. passively. We don't have to work for it. We can use gravity to our advantage to deepen that sensation. So try to lay your head down on your bottom arm, and to make this a little bit more, to increase sensation, you can stack your top arm alongside your bottom arm and just let your hands kind of find each other. And just notice that immediate maybe resisting against or tensing against. If you can start to embrace the bolster pushing up on you, the spine will grow more supple, the side body will elongate, the muscles of respiration will become more elastic, which increases our breath capacity. Just a few more moments here. Sometimes there's a phenomenon of supporting the support. So notice if you're kind of not fully letting your weight land on the prop. And just give that weight over to the prop. Just let the prop support you. And we'll do the twist and the lateral movement to the other side before we get to the back bend. So just kind of gently, slowly find your way to seated, and just move your bolster to the other end of your mat to come into the twist. So again, we're going to move that bolster into the vertical alignment with the end of it kind of touching the right hip now. And then you'll do your best to kind of turn in an upright way toward the bolster and try to spread as much of your torso length over it as you can. This time we're trying to get the left cheek down. And again, you can elevate the height if you need a little bit of a higher landing spot for the cheek. And of course, if the left cheek landing is not comfortable, just let the right cheek land. And arrange your arms so that your shoulders aren't kind of hanging out in limbo land. You want your shoulders to be truly surrendered. So sometimes that means widening your elbows. As you do this restorative class, notice the parts of the body that might be a little reluctant or resistant. And see if you can give some special attention to these areas, maybe some breath. See if you can allow more of your own weight to sink into that support. And then you're going to transition now to the crescent shape of the spine, turning your bolster 90 degrees, arranging it so it's going to be right under the side ribs, the right side ribs, extending your bottom arm. You don't have to be perfectly straight with your legs. Save that for another class. Or stack your legs. And then maybe take the top arm onto the bottom arm or hand. Molding yourself around that pillow. Maybe visualizing in your mind's eye what your spine looks like here. Sensing that expansion to the side body each time you inhale. And we're going to start to find our way out of it. Let's be slow, be gentle, move with awareness, and turn your bolster once again the long way. Now we're coming into reclining bound angle pose. So we've moved from forward bending to back bending. And you can set this up however you want to. You can use a strap if that is something you like to use for this pose, strapping the feet up to the hips to keep you kind of bound. You can support your knees, hips, your thighs, so that the legs can truly surrender. And you might not need that. And then use the elevation of the bolster to really begin behind the shoulder blades. It doesn't need to be any lower, doesn't need to be in the lumbar, certainly shouldn't be on the tailbone. And then notice if you need some head support, if your chin is kind of poking up in the sky and your forehead is lower. It's a sign to grab something and just take the head slightly higher. And I usually recommend starting on the backs of your hands with your hands lower than your shoulders to start to release that tension we all carry across the chest and in the shoulders that keep us really bound. Functionally, we do that to keep ourselves warm, but also emotionally, we do that protectively. So we want to start to really create space across the chest. Feel the little micro tensions across your chest start to surrender. And at some point you might move into more of like a goalpost arm. You might even be kind of suspending the arms above the floor pretty passively. You don't need props. You can always prop the elbows if that might help you, but you might be able to increase that sense of spreading, moving into this goalpost position. And after that starts to wear off, you might grab your hands above your head so that if you were kind of hovering over your body, you'd look like a figure 8. And you can enjoy a nice deep breath here without working for it. Just observe the body's ability to breathe in this position. Really giving your attention to this here and now experience in this pose. So we'll start to leave this pose. If your arms went up, you can start to bring them down. You can use your fingertips to join the knees. Shift to one side to help yourself up. We're going to move into our second sequence of the 6 actions. And we're going to be starting with a chair, Upavishta Konasana. So we're going to be sitting in our wide forward bend, and the chair edge of the chair seat will be head support. So you'll want to have a chair in front of you, and you're also going to want to create the triangle to sit on. So it's not the edge of your blanket, it's the point, which goes under the tailbone, not the sitting bone. So it's just a very small elevation. And if your lower back is rounded when you sit, you might need to double that triangle so that it's higher. So I've folded a blanket and made that triangle a little higher to sit on. And then my chair is going to be right in front of me. And if you have a cold metal chair like I do, you might want to put a blanket over the seat so that you can be more comfortable. If you don't have a chair, you're just going to fold forward passively with the head just kind of unsupported, but hopefully neutral neck, and as passive as you can make that without the support. Once you're perched up on that little triangle, you want to scoot forward so that you feel it's really not on the sitting bones. So we have this like 3-pronged thing, sitting bones and tailbone. Just the tailbone is on the blankets. And this helps you roll the flesh of the buttocks back, of course. Take your legs wide. And again, here we are in a forward bend. We're back to the beginning of the month, sitting upright and now folding forward. So go ahead and just bring yourself forward, cross your arms, maybe push that chair away as far as your body is willing to go initially. And take the forehead down. And when you place the forehead, just consider the alignment of the neck. We never want to be kind of jarring the neck. So keep a sweeping flow of nice open back of your neck. Be a little bit active with your legs. Remember, they're the foundation. They're really going to propel the trunk to keep extended and keep spacious. So keep your legs firm and hopefully the toes kind of pointing upright. As the body allows, just continue to push the chair away and kind of lengthen forward, but only at the inner cueing, not at some demand from the brain or the ego. If your body's kind of hung up on the legs, just make them more passive. We don't want to be like a skipping record in our poses. Make your pose work for you. You're going to start to slowly bring yourself out of the pose, lifting the head first, coming upright, finding a way to join the legs, sliding off the end of that little triangle of blanket support. And you can move your chair aside. We're going to come into a twist on the floor. So you'll need a blanket for your head, maybe, a bolster or blanket to support the leg that's going to move sideways, and a strap. We're going to work with the right leg first. We're coming into Parivrtta Padangusthasana, nice deep twist, but with support, of course. So because we're working with the right leg, you'll have your leg support off to the left, because this pose, we take the leg inside. We move it across the body. And then you're going to strap your right foot. And you can do it with a single loop so that you just have one tail to deal with, or you could just use two tails. It doesn't matter so much. So you'll begin with your right foot up in the sky with that strap on it. Your left knee is bent, which is safer for the back as we get ourselves into this shape. And then your left hand will be holding your strap. Feel free to wrap your hand so you don't have to squeeze so hard. And then you're going to help yourself kind of push into your left foot, slide your left hip over to the right, and carry your right leg to your prop, wherever you've placed it. I have mine under my foot, but you could maybe have yours in a different spot, wherever it creates the most support. So you should feel like your hips are stacked right over left. Your bottom leg in another class would be stiff and straight, and I shouldn't say stiff, but it would be very extended. Here, we're going to just leave it soft and quiet. So even if it's bent, it's passive, that's fine today. And then just drape your right hand over your side waist, your side ribs, and just look up at the ceiling for now. If you have bright light bulbs over your eyes, just close your eyes. And then eventually, at your own cueing, you'll roll your head to look off to the right, and you'll unfold the right arm. And that eventually might not be today, eventually it might be another day, eventually. But this is our twisting action. So the legs being very quiet and supported is going to affect the twist in a good way. Just give your attention to your legs as dense and heavy, passive. And notice where you're kind of leaning back from the pose. You're not all in, you're a little resistant. And just see if you can soften these areas. These are our doorways to deeper poses. These are our little clues in our body. So another container for breath. Breath is different in every single pose we do. Another container to study the self. How we're showing up here. Every pose is a little microcosm of kind of everything we do. So how we show up here can tell you a lot about yourself. You kind of deconstruct the pose slowly, starting by bending your right knee. And step your right foot down, step your left foot down, shift onto your back, lengthen out your spine, kind of put yourself back together. And we'll be doing it to the other side. I want to keep facing you, so I'm going to kind of flip around on my mat here, but you can do it however you want to do it. So this time we'll be taking hold of the left foot, holding with the right hand, and of course setting the propping out to the right side so it's going to support that leg that we're crossing through midline. And you can wrap the hand, of course. And then step into your right foot to help you tuck that right hip, kind of slide it to the left. You, again, want to arrange your hips kind of in a stacked position. Left hip comes above right. Our legs are kind of roughly 90-degree angle. You don't have to be fully extended. Be passive, heavy, dense with your legs. And just let your left hand sit along your side body as you kind of initiate the shoulder to release the connective tissue and start to break down that resistance. And just move your head to look straight up so that you're starting to rotate the neck. This attention giving in our practice is really going to lend itself to that feeling of gratitude that really is evidence of how beneficial this work we do in yoga is to our feeling of well-being. Just be very specific and particular with your attention giving. Notice the sensation in the hip. Notice the quality of breathing, the rhythm. Make sure to unfold the arm and turn the head to the left if you're ready for that. Moving the head and the arm back, bending the left knee, bring the left foot down onto the floor, the right foot as well. Just kind of align yourself evenly on the floor. For lateral movement, we're going to come into banana asana. So once you get rid of all those props around you, just lie flat on your mat. Extend your arms overhead and just interlock your hands. And begin to slide your right foot to the right. And then left foot follows, kind of chases after it. And slide your interlocked hands to the right. You might have to pick them up and set them down. And then attempt to cross the left ankle over the right ankle. And if it's too much, you can always kind of back out of it. You can slide the feet back a little bit, slide the hands back. And if you need more, of course, you're going to keep moving hands and feet to the right. And the idea is not to pick up the left sacrum. So keep your left sacrum down as much as the right sacrum is down. Otherwise, we're getting into more of a twist. This is a clean lateral movement with level sacrum. And again, you should find yourself in a place where you don't have to strive. You've built a shape and now you're just existing in that shape and allowing it to work on you. Notice where you feel kind of stiff or hardened. What really happens when you let that go? Surprisingly, nothing bad happens, and usually it benefits the pose. Just a little more time on this side. And begin to move your hands gently, slowly back, uncross your feet, baby step it back with the legs, bend your knees. And again, just arrange yourself on the floor so you're even, you're lifting your hips, you're drawing the butt away from your upper body. Become straight again. And if you have the wall space to move to the left, you can just stay put. If you're kind of up against the wall like I am, you might have to, again, flip around on your mat so you can move in the other direction. And you'll begin fully extended, legs are extended, arms are overhead. Take your alternate interlock this time just to keep those habits in the body a little bit challenged, more equalized. And then just sliding the feet to the left, sliding the hands to the left, picking up the right ankle, crossing it above the left. And again, I forgot to say on the first side, for some people, it helps to do an alternate ankle crossing. If you're not getting a lot of sensation with the right ankle over the left, you could try the left ankle over the right. Remind your right sacrum side that it should stay down. It's not to pull away from the floor. If you feel like you're kind of rigid or kind of holding the pose stiffly, see what happens when you let go, and hopefully not a big change is noticed and your body can go more deeply into the pose. Enjoying the experience of paying attention. You'll know if you need a little more sensation. If your mind starts to wander, it's oftentimes a clue. Just slide the feet farther to the left, the hands farther to the left. We're going to start to deconstruct this pose. So ease the hands and feet over to center, not all at once, and step your feet to the floor so knees are bent so that you can pick up your hips and really straighten out the spine from that side movement. We've been very luxurious with the timing of this class, so Friday's class will probably do those second 2 sequences. So we're going to finish this sequence with a prone Sphinx position with prayer position hands, and you're going to want to pad your hips with your blanket. And give yourself a generous amount of space between the feet. You want to try to sense that you're resting on the fronts of your thighs and you're on the tops of your feet. And then extend your elbows forward so that you can press the hands together in the Namaskar Asana mudra, the prayer hand position. And then let the head rest against the base of the thumbs in a way that the back of the neck is smooth. You're not doing an extreme extension of your cervical spine. You want the back of the neck smooth. And use your elbows as little kickstands. Very mild back bend. If it's too much for you, you can always cross your forearms and rest your head on your forearms. So don't wait it out. If it's not a pleasant experience, then you're going to want to change it. If you feel like your tailbone is curling up to the ceiling, just start to think about the tip of that tailbone like a little periscope, a little eyeball. And just take that little eyeball tip toward the floor. Very subtle action, doesn't require a whole lot of effort, but it really kind of cleans up the pose to be more precise, which, as we know from our journey this month, is really what this is all about. And if there's any tension in the buttocks, see what happens when you just let it go. And of course, with the forehead in contact with your hands, your brain is signaled to recede, to quiet, to pull away from the external world. With those pressure against your belly, your abdomen, your front ribs, kind of see if you can imagine your breath spreading into the back ribs. We're going to start to leave this pose. So just move the hands away from the forehead. You're going to be helping yourself transition so that we're going to set up for our pranayama practice. You can work with the bolster, but that is a little bit wide for the support we really want to create. So I actually prefer, even if you own a bolster, to create these blanket supports, which are kind of a tiered setup, will result in 4 kind of levels of height. So hopefully you have 2 bolsters. By the way, I still have a few more if you need to buy any. But you can open your blanket up once from the normal kind of position of the blanket that we used to put them away back in the day when we were live in person. So open it up and zigzag it. So it's a, it's called a tri-fold. Some people call it a like Z, which is Greek for the letter Z. The shape is like the letter Z. So bottom blanket, and then do it again with another blanket. But they don't stack, they stagger. So the bottom blanket is going to be closer to your body. The top blanket is going to be staggered that way. So that you have the first layer of your floor, I should say the first layer of your setup is floor. That's layer 0. And then we have layer number 1, which is going to support the lumbar spine, the lower back. Layer 2 is going to be supporting the thoracic. And then the final layer, you're going to kind of do what I call a snail roll. You'll kind of roll the top to meet the head height that you need. And when you're reclining, you can build that up under you pretty easily. So you don't have to really master it right away. You can kind of stuff it under your head the way it needs to be once you're down. So at this point, if you have bright lights over your head, turn them off. If you have, if you feel cold, grab a blanket, put it over you. If you like to use eye pillows, put an eye pillow on. Because pranayama is really done most effectively when our senses are down regulated. So if you're cold, that's going to keep you kind of out in the external world. The bright light shining in your eyeballs is driving you crazy. You're not going to feel too peaceful here. So just kind of take care of those needs. And then you'll lie back and just kind of make sure you're meeting the floor as you try to make happen. So the butt should be flat on the ground. The lumbar has that very thin first layer of blanket. Thoracic has the 2 layers, and the head has as much height as you need. So you might grab it and just kind of roll it even more because we want to really tilt the chin toward the chest. And you have to Goldilocks this. We all have different proportions. Some of us have very short lumbar space. You might need less of that tier. Some of us have long torsos. You might need longer. So you'll start to know kind of your setup. The heels should be almost to the edges of your mat. Your feet are flopping out, totally relaxed. Unfold your arms, even if you're under the blanket, unfold the arms under the blanket, palms up. And just first arriving physically into the shape of this pranayama setup. Feeling the shoulders just start to curl around the edges of that setup and release tension. Your eyes are closed and you're looking away from your brain. We're just doing Ujjayi exhale today, but we're not going to start that until we get really a baseline for our breath. And anytime you do the Ujjayi practices, you start with Ujjayi 1, which is really that just simply giving full attention to your breathing. So you're not willfully doing anything to change your breath here. And you can notice qualities. There might be a sound. There might be a temperature of the breath passing in and out of the nostril cavities. There might be pausing between breaths. You might notice different length of your inhale versus your exhale. We're going to do Ujjayi exhales, but we're going to separate them with the Ujjayi 1 cycle of breathing. And before we go into Ujjayi exhale, just remember we really don't want to harden the abdomen as you control the breath flow out. And we're really more interested in smoothness and steadiness than anything else. So it's as if there's a very slow leak in a valve. If you hear rippling, you're kind of overdoing it. It's a very subtle practice. So we always begin with a complete cycle of breath in and out, Ujjayi 1. From there, another in breath. And then start to Ujjayi exhale out slowly and steadily. And when you meet the end of that breath, cycle back to Ujjayi 1, and you might need 2 cycles or more. So again, it's all about your inner cueing. That's why I don't like to really lead us through a bunch of cycles back to back, because we're all kind of on our own path here. So just notice, we never want to feel agitated in pranayama. This is to settle the mind. So repeating as many Ujjayi exhales as are allowed, as are permitted by the body staying quiet. There's a slight aspirant quality to the sound, like a hiss. Keeping the abdomen soft. Just another couple of minutes with the pranayama today. You're going to come into your final Ujjayi 2 if you're still with it. And just stay for a few more moments in Ujjayi 1, so observing the automatic breathing in your body, the body breathing by itself. And to come back into normal lung tissue, we're going to come off the pranayama supports, but do so in a way that's not disruptive to your current state. We'll just kind of shift sideways, move those props away, and give your head as much support as it needs, but the back body should come down flat on the floor now. And you'll spend your final moments in Shavasana. If we are discerning in this process of yoga, we begin to really notice the benefit of our practice in the form of gratitude. And so I chose a poem today by Mary Oliver, wonderful poet, entitled Gratitude. What did you notice? The dew snail, the low-flying sparrow, the bat on the wind in the dark, big-chested geese in the V of sleekest performance, the soft toad, patient in the hot sand, the sweet hungry ants, the uproar of mice in the empty house, the tin music of the cricket's body, the blouse of the goldenrod. What did you hear? The thrush greeting the morning, the little bluebirds in their hot box, the salty talk of the wren, then the deep cut of the hour of silence. When did you admire? The oaks letting down their dark and hairy fruit, the carrot rising in its elongated waist, the onion, sheet after sheet, curved inward to the pale green wand. At the end of summer, the brassy dust, the almost liquid beauty of the flowers. Then the ferns, scrawled black by the frost. What astonished you? The swallows making their dip and turn over the water. What would you like to see again? My dog, her energy and exuberance, her willingness, her language beyond all nimbleness of tongue, her recklessness, her loyalty, her sweetness, her strong legs, her curled black lip, her snap. What was most tender? Queen Anne's lace with its parsnip root, the everlasting in its bonnets of wool, the kinks and turns of the Tupelo's body, the tall, blank banks of sand, the clam clamped down. What was most wonderful? The sea and its wide shoulders, the sea and its triangles, the sea lying back on its long athlete's spine. What did you think was happening? The green beast of the hummingbird, the eye of the pond, the wet face of the lily, the bright puckered knee of the broken oak, the red tulip of the fox's mouth, the upswing, the downpour, the frayed sleeve of the first snow. So the gods shake us from our sleep. So let's begin to leave Shavasana with just small, simple movement. Deeper breaths. And slowly finding your way to side lying position. Conserving your energy, finding your way to seated. Just like we started, just join the hands in front of the heart. Take a few moments just to notice. Paying your attention. Maybe finding a feeling of gratitude in that practice. Sealing this practice with a bow to the heart. From the place within me that I know to be divine, I honor that place within each of you. Namaste. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope to see you Wednesday and or Friday, some of you. And maybe we'll get that snowfall. Vern's already there, so. And Sylvia. Bye, you guys.